Hey everyone, it's me Beau, back once again on the Film Scene Investigation channel, here with another cult movie review. I hope everyone is doing good. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the 1996 period drama, The Funeral. So, as I'm sure some of you are aware, I'm a huge fan of Abel Ferrara and the various movies that he's put out over the years. The Funeral in particular I rate highly, so looking forward to doing a deep dive into this movie today. And as always guys, if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you like the reviews that I do. So The Funeral from 1996 starred an array of top caliber actors, including Christopher Walken, Benicio del Toro, and Isabella Rossellini. This movie marked Abel Ferrara's 10th feature film as director, and also marked the last collaboration between him and writer Nicholas St. John. For years, the two worked on various projects together, including The Driller Killer, China Girl, and King of New York. St. John's skillful writing, mixed in with Ferrara's imagery, was a brilliant combination. So in 1996 they suddenly parted ways, stopped working together, and since then they've never reunited, which for me is a real shame. So the first time I saw The Funeral was back in 2021. I was at the time just watching a load of random cult movies, and I just stumbled upon The Funeral. I was already a fan of Ferrara's work ever since watching King of New York, so seeing Christopher Walken once again team up with Abel Ferrara, it definitely sparked my interest. In regards to the plot, the movie followed two brothers, Ray and Chez, played by Christopher Walken and Chris Penn, respectively. Their brother, Johnny, played by the actor Vincent Gallo, had just been murdered, and the family were basically out for revenge. The movie began with the family members gathered together in the wake of Johnny's death. His coffin was slowly carried into the family home as they awaited a priest to give the last rites. And then through a series of flashbacks, we saw the trials and tribulations of Johnny and all the kind of things that led up to his death. He was this young upstart kid trying to make a name for himself, and I must say, I found the Johnny character quite intriguing. And it's just a shame actually that those two, Gallo and Ferrara, never actually worked together ever again, because I thought that could be a kind of cool dynamic for further movies down the line. The family were basically gangsters, involved in illegal dealings, and because of this, Ray, played by Christopher Walken, he was suspicious that a rival had murdered his brother. Gaspara Spoglia, played by actor Benicio del Toro, was the prime suspect. Ray knew that Gaspar was a dangerous man and more than capable of murder. They had both had previous dealings with each other over the hiring of union workers, so he knew the family, and we also later found out that Johnny was sleeping with his wife. So there was a lot of bad blood between them, to say the least. And of course, logically to Ray, Spoglia was the prime candidate. Separately to this, you had the wives kind of basically try and talk their husbands out of making any rash decisions. While of course this movie revolved around this family bereavement, The real story was about Chez and his declining mental health. On the surface, Chez seemed okay, but deep down he had this ugly side to him. And while I thought initially the character was just hot-tempered, as the film progressed, it was quite clear that Chez was experiencing some sort of mental breakdown. This all culminated with Chez taking a gun and shooting various family members, including his brother, at the end of the film. I mean, even just thinking about it now, it was very haunting. It was a chilling piece of cinema. I remember watching this movie for the first time and seeing how it all played out, and yeah, I was shocked. I don't know, it all just kind of came out of nowhere, and I legit didn't think that Chez would actually take a gun to his own family. And what's crazy as well is that in the midst of all this chaos, we've got, the women screaming, bullets are flying. Chez then turns to the coffin and takes a shot at Johnny. I mean, Johnny was dead. He was in a coffin, he was a corpse, yet Chez still took the gun and, just took a shot at him. It was just like, wow, how crazy is this guy? I mean, the whole thing just really exposed how poor Chez's mental state was. And I have to say that the final scene, while it was shocking and some really dark stuff, it was brilliantly executed. So massive props to Abel Ferrara. I've seen all of Abel Ferrara's work, and for me this is one of his strongest endings he's ever produced. And I have to take a moment to give some credit to the actor Chris Penn, who played Chez. The funeral was an ensemble of talented actors, but for me, Chris Penn borderline stole the show. It was his character's descent into madness that for me was the most compelling part of the film. This movie being set in the 1930s, mental illness was a topic just not discussed by anyone. And so with that, it made sense that Chez's mental decline went undiagnosed. He was left to suffer, and he was never able to get the support he actually needed. He was a volatile man to begin with. Let's get that straight. He was a guy with a nasty streak. But when his brother died, when his younger brother, his baby brother died, innocently murdered, it basically tipped him over the edge. The whole thing was just kind of heartbreaking. It was tragic, and you really felt for the family that were left, the widows that were going to have to pick up the pieces after what had just transpired. And it's actually worth pointing out that even when we take a look back at Chez's first scene, his first appearance in the film, when he goes and pays respects to his brother, at first he is calm and collected. Of course he's upset, but he seems kind of subdued and just kind of taking in the atmosphere. But within a few moments, Chez screamed out in pain. It was just all too much for him, and he basically let his mask slip, showing his true emotions to everyone. It all played out so naturally. Just props, massive credit to the late actor Chris Penn. Having the story set in the early 1930s in New York, I really did think it enhanced the film's overall quality. You have to think that up until the funeral in 1996, Abel Ferrara's movies had all been basically set in present day. So Ferrara this time delving into a period piece was very intriguing to me. The film's aesthetic felt very authentic, and it was clear that a lot of time and attention had gone into making the film look as real as possible. As for the other actors in the movie, I thought everyone did a fantastic job. There was some really great acting throughout the whole film, very character driven, and nobody gave a bad performance. I want to mention the actor David Patrick Kelly. He had a small role in this movie as a communist speaker. Now, Kelly originally worked with Abel Ferrara on the 1985 Miami Vice episode, The Home Invaders. I've always liked the actor, and it was really cool to see David Patrick Kelly once again re-team and work with Abel Ferrara. It was a limited role, and I would have loved to have seen a bigger part for him. I think he's a top caliber actor that is capable of so much, but nevertheless it was great to see him here in The Funeral. Gallo, the actor, was also brilliant in his role as Johnny. Gallo had some very strong screen presence in this film, and I was very impressed with what I saw. He had this darkness behind the eyes. I mean, the character definitely had this kind of rogue, rebel kind of spirit in him. I just was very intrigued with his overall performance. I mean, the actor never really went on to bigger and better things, but nevertheless, he was a great addition to this movie. And so, dislikes for The Funeral, 1996. Now, I can't say that there was anything glaringly bad about this movie. There's nothing really wrong that I can really dislike about it. It's not to say that this movie was perfect. All movies have their flaws, but there was no major negatives for me. Anything I could really think of would be the overall lack of action in the film. Now, fundamentally, The Funeral was a bleak period piece set around a mob family. It wasn't an outright gangster movie with murders and shootouts going on. Instead, we got a more personal story about a family coming to terms with the loss of a loved one. I completely understand what Ferrara was going for here, and for the most part it worked. I just feel that an additional action set piece may have heightened the film's overall quality. Now, early on in the film, we did see Johnny and his men hijack a truck and set it on fire. It was an awesome little sequence, and it showcased some of the familiar gangster action we know. But other than that, there really wasn't any action to talk about. There's no denying that Abel Ferrara can shoot action. He's produced it over the years, and I think maybe this film was missing some of that. The director clearly wanted to focus on the inner family tragedy rather than the mob activity. And so, ratings for The Funeral, 1996. I'm going to be rating this movie a solid 7.5 out of 10. First and foremost, I'm just going to say it, for me, The Funeral is one of Abel Ferrara's best films. The movie peeled back all the Italian gangster bravado and instead showed the emotional scars that are left when a loved one dies. And it also touched upon some interesting themes such as religion, communism, family and loyalty. It's safe to say that the narrative leaned heavily on the morality rather than the criminal activity. And in terms of the film's periodic look and aesthetic, I have to give it top marks. You know, the costumes, the hair, the stylings, the makeup, just everything put together. It just looked wonderful. You know, Benicio del Toro in particular looked very debonair with his various suits that he wore in the film. And to my understanding, Ferrara had a limited budget to use, so credit to him for pulling off this whole 1930s vibe. You know, at times there were elements of the film that actually reminded me of the HBO series Boardwalk Empire, another great show set in the Prohibition era. Over the years, Ferrara became a more capable and experienced filmmaker, and it showed with this entry in his filmography. He matured and he developed his own style, culminating in this personal family drama. So yeah, if you haven't watched this one yet, it's worth your time. Definitely go ahead, but do not be expecting a action-packed mob movie. The gangster stuff was merely more a backdrop for which then the real story unfolded. And yeah, that's all from me today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I will be back next week with more movie reviews. Don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, of course, take care.